Is this case a much broader indication of the frustration of Indian society, particularly in New Delhi, for the lack of law and order, in your view?
I believe so, and the level of protests indicates that a voice needs to be heard, and this is their voice being expressed. And tragic and so very sad as this case is, I think the most positive outcome would be a change in the laws and to improve things dramatically for the safety of women and for the citizens, really.
Could this be, I know this is a bit of a stretch, but the Arab Spring moment for India? You have to track Indian investments for clients, and you have to track risk. Is there that potential risk here because people are so frustrated, and this is just a sample of what they're frustrated about in Indian society?
I think that frustration has been there for a long time, for decades, and I think one must understand the Indian psyche. Well, first of all, it's a democracy, and secondly, things happen at a glacial pace in India, so it's an evolution rather than a revolution, but it is very good that the voice is being heard. So in this particular case, for example, the government was slow in responding and reacting, but they did listen. So, for example, the Prime Minister going on television, the leader of the Congress Party, Mrs. Gandhi, going on television, a chartered plane being sent out to Singapore. And indeed, when the plane came back in the early hours of the morning, the Prime Minister was there, Mrs. Gandhi was there. So they did listen, and they have now charged the perpetrators. But this process needs to go on, this listening of the people to their frustrations, their needs. And hopefully this case will make a positive impact on those lines.
When I saw this case, of course, it's a tragedy, but I started making the link at the frustration over the poverty level and the land rights issues that you have and the reforms that took so long to be introduced into Indian society, the economic reforms in September. Now, Prime Minister Singh says we should die trying to get all these reforms through. Is the effort a real one in your view?
I think the effort this time has been a real one. So, for example, in September, in about 24 hours, they pushed through more reforms than in the last 8 years. One thing has to be understood, John, in India is this, that reforms take a long time because there are short-term pains for having long-term gains. Now, in a democracy and in a country where there's no proper social security network, job losses are disastrous, and hence all this takes time. There are vested interests, political interests, etc. So all these take time, really, in a democracy, and that is the cost of a democracy to India, the slow progress, and this is something that one has to live with from the outside.